Retro lunch break.
Yes.
Retro lunch break with Nick and Rick.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Retro Lunch Break, the podcast. Over here on my right is my right nut. Say right, hello, right nut.
Hello.
And say hello, my left nut.
Hello.
And that, of course, makes me the Rick in the middle.
Yes. Nice. Oh, God. I love that jokes.
So, yes.
Yes.
My right nut is always joining us here is Nick.
Hello.
And yes, my left nut here is always joining us, Eddie. And, of course, this is another episode of Winging It. So, any kind of topic we want to talk about, any open forum that we want, what do we want to start off now?
I think we decided
Yeah,
we were talking
video
about
games.
video games,
Yeah.
right?
Video games
what
first.
Are we playing lately?
Yeah.
What are we playing lately? I am playing Pokemon Sword, and I'm absolutely loving it. It is gorgeous. I actually just noticed something that was really cool. That it's such a minute detail, but it shows that graphics have come so far in terms of what you have the character able to do and not do, and it could still easily be overlooked. But it's such a nice little detail. So in the title game, you have I think there's two competing rivals that you have, and his name is Bed. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Bede.
Okay.
I think his name is Bed, and he actually puts his hand in his pocket, which is an interesting thing because you have clothes as a character. You can change your clothes, so it's nice that they actually made it so that when he poses, his hand goes behind inside the clothing, so it looks like he actually has his hand in the pocket.
Okay.
And after he looks at you, he turns his head and he raises up his I think that's his right hand. Raises up his right hand, and he has a watch, and the watch actually moves down his wrist.
Oh, that's
and it
cool.
actually
The
goes
physics,
inside.
huh?
Yeah, it goes
Nice.
inside the sleeve.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
noticed that, and I was like, I love that. I love that they actually put that attention to detail in there.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the first. Wow, I'm blowing myself away by the fact that this is actually the first console-based Pokemon game. Mind you, I've actually
Mainline
played
Pokemon.
mainline Pokemon
Yes.
game.
Because Pokemon
Oh, yeah.
Snap. Don't forget about Pokemon Snap.
And Let's Go Eevee and
Yeah.
Let's Go Pikachu.
Yeah, those are remakes of a original, but they're not considered part of the mainline Pokemon series.
No, true, but they are Pokemon games on consoles.
Yes.
Just as you mentioned, Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And wasn't there like a Pokemon Stadium?
Yeah, on the
Oh,
Nintendo
yeah.
64 and
Right.
GameCube also. They made a Pokemon Stadium on GameCube.
Oh, yeah, I've
and then there's
seen-
the Pokemon fighting game, the Pokken Tournament,
That's
which...
not- oh, on the Switch.
That's on the Switch and the Wii U.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the Tekken one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pokken.
Oh, so thank you for. Wasn't it Poke Tekken?
No, it's Pokken, I think. I think it's like
Oh,
Pokken.
Pokken.
Pokken,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
took Pokemon and Tekken. I actually have that on the Switch.
Really? I remember
Yeah.
playing the demo.
Yeah, it's fun. My daughter was one of her picks for games, and it's a fun little fighting game. It's nice.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
So yes, as I was saying, so this being the first mainline. Thank you, Nick. This is the first mainline Pokemon title on a console on a Switch, and for me myself, I love console. I'm sorry, I love mobile gaming, and the fact that the Switch is both console and mobile platform, and I can play it anywhere. I'm just loving the attention to detail in the graphics in this game. That's what I'm playing right now, and I'm enjoying every single second I do get to play it. And that's what I'm playing right now. Eddie, how about we go to you next?
Sure. I've been playing a game called Frostpunk.
Frostpunk?
Yeah,
Frostpunk?
it's a survival, I guess, real-time strategy game.
I was hoping it was about Robert Frost's son, who's rebelling against the system.
Okay. But I'm bunched.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
I'll take that.
Thank
yeah.
you.
If you ever played games like,
it like
I guess
Civilization?
like Tropical or Civilization,
Or like what?
It's like Civilization.
What are you
yeah.
playing it on?
PC.
Okay, yeah, because
It's
I
available on
believe
Game Pass
I
right
believe
now.
someone talked to me about this. Yeah, and you're building cities, but everything's like in this icy tundra, steampunk like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was someone who talked to me about this game a while ago. Yeah, it's been out for a little while, right? Like
Yeah.
a year or so.
Yeah, it's been out
Yeah,
for a
like
year,
a
but
year.
it just
Wow.
became available on Game Pass, which I own.
Yeah, Mr.
And
Game
owner
Pass
of the
here.
Game Pass.
So you're
Mr.
playing this
Microsoft here.
on
So I'm playing it
Xbox?
on the PC. There's
Oh.
a Game Pass beta for PC,
Oh,
so I'm
okay.
able to play PC versions of some of these games.
Yeah.
It is available on consoles.
It's the same
also
Game
on
Pass,
Xbox
correct?
and
Like if you buy
PlayStation,
the
yeah.
Game Pass for Xbox, you get the PC
Exactly.
one. It's all one price
all
for
one
both.
price, yeah.
I really like that they did that.
Yeah.
That was nice of them. Smart move.
And it includes the gold as
Yeah.
well, so I can play online.
What does that mean? That includes the gold as well?
Gold tier membership, so you can play with people online and get the games and all that stuff. It's like the highest tier.
Yeah.
There's platinum and gold, or silver and gold.
I think it's just two now. Is this gold or the silver? I
Yeah,
believe.
silver or gold. Silver is just a free base system where you can access the shop and you can't play all games online.
Something like
Only
that,
some
yeah.
games are allowed to be played online, and then gold is paid online, like all of the services have.
Yeah.
It's like PlayStation Network or Nintendo Switch Online. They just call theirs Gold. Microsoft
yeah.
Gold. That's just the name
Oh,
for it.
I see.
And then they introduced the Game Pass, which was separate from the gold membership, where you just have a library of games, but they've decided to merge it together. So now you're paying for everything together.
Oh,
yeah.
that sounds nice. That sounds
At least
good.
that's what I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about.
But the game is,
Frostpunk?
you know, what Nick was saying. It is, you know, in the icy tundras and the snow. Apparently, you know, I don't know if it was like 1800s. Like, imagine if global warming happened and, you know, the world's cold, right? And we find like the last, supposedly, well, one of the scenarios is we find like the last city, and it's my job as the captain to make sure we survive by keeping a generator in the middle of the map, pumping it with coal just to keep it on as we survive the treacherous nights. And it's pretty cool because over time, the nights get colder and colder.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, you know, we got to keep pumping stuff, and we start building the city. We got to provide homes for everybody, you know, and then we got to provide, you know, like a little house where they can make meals. We got to gather steel. We got to gather wood, and then, you know, the primary coal. And then they added this thing called steam cores. Yeah, like a little core that's like very rare. I have to get those as I like search around the map. I can send scouts to explore, and I can find these cores that are used for like the more advanced buildings, or to build like automatons, or, you know, those machines, the robots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because eventually you can build robots to just, you know, mine stuff for you.
Steampunk robots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. I'm really enjoying it. I just like the idea. I think they did a really good job with like the style of the game. Like it feels dark. It feels cold.
Not to put you on the spot, do you happen to know the company that makes it?
I think it's like 11-bit Studio.
Oh, okay. And I'm not
I believe
familiar.
that's,
with
yeah.
3 better than 8.
But I like the music. I can't explain it, but it's just those like violin, you know.
Yeah.
You know, cool, very
That's cool.
sad music. It's just like, it puts me in the mood. Like, oh man,
Like
I'm
orchestral
getting
music.
cold. You know, it's
Wow.
cold.
Yeah.
I just want to survive. I want to get, you know, I just want to keep my people alive.
Is there like to me, because everything you described so far, it sounds like StarCraft, Warcraft, and SimCity, and I'm curious now. Do you have to defend yourself against like outside intrusions?
No, it's just
No?
the weather.
Just the weather.
Just the weather.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's the main thing that's going to kill us. And I guess just the lack of us gathering our resources. Like if I'm not making enough food, people will starve. But that's about it. We could either starve or we can freeze to death.
Wow.
or no, actually, I'm sorry. They do have this, I guess, like a book of laws where I can sign some laws that come into play. And depending on the law, some of them are like really extreme, where it's like, oh, we can settle things by beating each other up.
Wow.
Right?
Nice.
But if you beat each other up, there's potential that somebody might die.
Yeah.
Right? Or I can send, you know, like a police squad or something like that to like patrol the city. But then at some point I can beat people up if they're not, you know, if I wanted to.
Wow.
So it is kind of interesting, you know, these weird laws and different, like you could put
The
kids
moral
to work.
choices that they
Yeah,
put
the moral
in there,
choices. You
yeah.
could put the kids to work. I never do. I always put them in like the child houses, and, you know, keep them safe. I like to be like, you know, morally good in the game.
That's good.
But at some point, like I remember the first time I played, I was like, okay, they gave me an option, right? I can either do like, I have to give them hope, either through like some kind of like discipline and law, or through like faith and religious, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with faith because I believe in, you know, being able to pray, you know, and keep the spirits high. So I went down that road, and then I ended up like hiring like these faith keepers.
So pretty much.
Eventually, they went around just beating people
Pretty
up.
much. Yeah.
Forcing the spirits.
Yeah.
So I found that kind of funny.
They were the Ravens in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah, who went around for the High Septon for his. I think they were called ravens. I really want to say they were
I don't
ravens.
remember,
I
yeah,
can't remember.
but I
what
have an idea
yeah.
who you're talking about.
Yeah, they carved. They were zealots, and they carved the thing into their forehead, and they went around beating people who didn't
Yeah.
believe in the religion or broke the religious laws.
And aren't they the ones that sent Cersei?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they
on the
punished her.
walk,
Yeah,
yeah.
on the walk. Yeah, and but you know it's really fun, and I usually end up just going the other route anyways, and just build a brothel house so the guys can drink and be with women and have a good time just to raise morale for
Wow.
everybody. Yeah, I'm sure the women are not too happy, but anything to keep the city alive, I guess.
Is there a end goal? Like-
There is. It's kind of funny because it does have scenarios
Oh,
that you
okay.
can complete. The main scenario was just to survive a huge storm that comes like 40 days in or something like that, where it just gets freezing for like a few days, and hopefully you gather enough resources to just survive the storm. And then there is an endless mode where you can just kind of like, I guess, sandbox, just build
Yeah.
and just survive as long as you can.
That's cool.
Funny enough, I just realized since you mentioned Nick, since you mentioned Game of Thrones, and as the scenario you're describing, do you think this game was inspired by the simple phrase of "winter is coming"?
No.
Was this entire world, this
No.
game was built around that one phrase? Somebody at the 11th studio,
11-bit
studio,
studio? I think-
heard,
yeah, I think that's the
heard
name.
the tagline for
No.
Game of Thrones. Is like,
I doubt
I
that.
got it. I
We
got it.
But we're gonna make it steampunk. But why?
Because steampunk is awesome, and that's why. Yes. See, no arguments. That's why. Okay, awesome. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. Is this console? No, is this PC only, or is it?
It's available on both
consoles
PC and the consoles, both consoles, Xbox and PlayStation.
Okay. Do you think it'll ever be on the Switch?
Stranger things have happened. That's the
Maybe,
thing.
I'm not sure.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of these indie games that came out for mainly PC, like the Gravekeeper game, right? That came out recently for the Switch. There was this game called like Gravekeeper, and pretty much it's something along those lines.
I'm
You're
not
in
familiar.
charge of building a graveyard and maintaining it. It's like
Really?
it's like a Harvest Moon, but with graveyards.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and you're a grave digger, and it's to help a town and everything. And
How hard is it to maintain a graveyard?
it looks pretty intense. You should watch the trailer of it. It looks pretty fun.
wow, okay.
I'm being cynical, but I imagine
Yeah.
the gameplay is
Yeah,
intriguing.
but that was one of those things that was on PC that it's like, oh, that'll probably never come out, and of course now it's on the Switch. So stranger things have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that I didn't notice about this game is there is because I'm using the Xbox Game Pass to play the PC version. I don't think it's aligned with, I guess, what you would call the PC standalone that's available via Steam.
Yeah.
Because they have like DLC. There's like this new DLC that just came out, and I don't see it updating on my version.
It
I
could-
wonder if it's just delayed or.
It could be just delayed because
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially when games are newer to like the Microsoft platform from a Steam, and Steam's far ahead, it'll take the company, especially if it's a game that's continuously going on, time to catch up to port all of that over. They don't just port it all over in one shot.
Got
So it
it,
comes
got
out in
it.
pieces, and licensing and all that kind of stuff. And I want this game to people to play the core of this game, not just dive right into the DLC stuff. So
Yeah,
all that
okay.
thought process probably goes into it, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And it just reminds me, actually, are you guys owners of iPhone?
Yes.
No.
Right? Have you heard of the Apple Arcade?
Yeah, I've heard of Apple Arcade.
I decided to join for a free month,
Oh yeah.
and I'm stuck playing this one little cute game.
Nice.
I forgot what the name of the game is, but the idea is that you're building roads to connect a house to a building,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And it randomly generates the building, randomly generates the houses, and your job is just to keep building the roads to make sure they're connecting, because the houses, the cars in the houses have to go to the big building to get a point. Like it's like a little ticker that keeps coming up in the buildings, and eventually it starts generating random colors. So you got to also match the colors, you got to match the
nice.
roads, and then eventually everything just starts intersecting and starts creating traffic.
Huh.
And then you got to like kind of like
Manage the
manage
city. Yeah.
the traffic. I think that's the main idea of the game, and it's kind of cool actually. I've been playing that recently.
Yeah, I've considered Apple
Yeah.
Arcade because sometimes I'll be on my phone or my tablet and I'm like, oh, let me go into the store and see what little mobile games are here to waste a couple hours. And then I see games on there. I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. And it's like Apple Arcade only. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not going to do this game.
You have to pay for that?
Yes, $10
Yeah.
a month, I think, is,
Oh,
or
really?
6. It's a
Maybe 6. I think it's 6.
a
I think it's
number of
$5.99.
dollars a month. Lease subscription. Yeah.
Something more than
Yeah.
you're willing to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for mobile games.
Yeah.
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 So it's
not-
like a higher tier of gaming mobile
No,
games?
they just have exclusives like Oceanhorn 2, which is a Zelda-esque type game.
Oh.
More traditional Zelda, not Breath of the Wild Zelda, is offered with our Apple Arcade, and just a slew of like their higher tier games, their bigger games are offered that way, where you can't purchase them standalone. It's not like I can go buy Oceanhorn for $10 from the Apple Store or play it in the Apple Arcade. It's Apple Arcade only.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the good thing is they do remove like
Ads.
ads.
Yeah.
And I don't think they add games that have in-game purchases as well.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, because I haven't seen a game that has the in-game purchases. But yeah,
Awesome.
Okay. No, I mean, personally, just since you asked, I think I'll just make the stance now. Whereas I do not play mobile games. I do not enjoy having games on my phone. I think it's my phone is supposed to be my phone, and that's it. Whereas games are meant to be on a specific console or the handheld. Because if I'm playing a game on my phone, it's going to drain the battery and it's going to defeat the entire purpose of having my phone.
I see what you're saying, but like with phones nowadays and the way that games are optimized, it's not
No.
really as much of a battery drain as you would imagine. If you like charging your battery once every 3 days, then yeah, it's obviously going to be a drain.
and thank you for bringing that up
Yeah.
because I can't stand the controls. I can't stand the lack of
Oh,
because most
Yeah.
mobile platforms are on the
The
flat.
virtual controls,
Yeah,
I can't stand them.
You have to put your thumb on the screen and cover what you're
Yeah.
trying to see.
I like the mobile games
And
I
I
do
can't.
play are games where you tap or
No.
drag to something. I'm okay with that.
yeah,
Still-
I
I'm
got
still
used
not
to
a
it. I
fan.
got used to it.
Yeah, but I think we've talked about this in the past. I've watched you play PUBG on your phone, and I don't know how you do that because that's insane. With your thumbs, not
Yeah,
with like an
yeah.
add-on controller, just with your thumbs on the screen. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah,
get that,
I
but
can't. So yeah, me personally, I just can't do that. So it's not an option for me. Okay, so moving on to Nick now. What games are you playing?
So a friend of mine, Gio, he had this idea where he's like, I have a backlog of games.
Yeah.
I need to finish games before I buy more games. And that was kind of his New Year's resolution. And I just thought that was a really good idea because I've been sinking so much time into Dead by Daylight mainly, and that's just an ongoing game that has no real end. And it's one of those living, breathing MMOs type games. So I just decided that I have this backlog of games that I've been ignoring, that I'm going to take a page from his book and I'm going to try to finish games this year. And we're, 20 some days into January, and I've already gone through and finished 3 games that I had been meaning to finish from last year. And I've moved on to my 4th. So the first game I finished was Luigi's Mansion 3. I was really into that in October and November, and then I kind of put it down and focused only on Dead by Daylight. And then I got back into it and I finished it, and that game was phenomenal. Last 2 boss fights were a little frustrating in the way that they wanted you to use the mechanics versus how they had ever showed you the mechanics before in the game. It's like, yes, these are all mechanics in the game, but the way they combined them felt like it was like, we're doing this to make this harder than it should be, unnecessarily, considering how much of the rest of the game was just like, oh, you use 1 or 2 mechanics, and now in these boss fights, it's like, you have to use 4 mechanics and juggle Luigi and Guigi like back and forth within 3 seconds or you're gonna die. And it's just like,
Well,
yeah.
that's interesting that you bring that up because in an action type game, it's like how could you make it difficult? Because in an RPG with like a turn-based RPG, you have stats involved.
Yeah.
And if you have a boss, usually the boss is stacked, or it's some sort of multiplier based on your own stats, or even in some cases where the boss has a set amount of stats, and you can actually grind up and be more powerful than the end boss, and then make it even easier. In an action game, how would you make a boss difficult unless you made the challenge of fighting him more difficult? You understand what I'm saying?
I'm fine with it being challenging. That wasn't the problem. My problem is the pacing of the challenge.
The pacing of the challenge.
Yes, the ramp up for every boss you fight before that is, relatively easy for the game. You use one of the mechanics, really. It's like,
Right,
I'm going to
yeah.
have to use the plunger and pull off a shield and then flash him.
Yeah.
But this is one where they wanted you to do so much more than they had ever presented you even relatively close to. So it's like, you understand all these mechanics individually, but now work them all together in a precise timing situation, which you've never had to do before, to beat the game. It's not like, it wasn't like a
In-
gradual step up to it.
In defense of Luigi's Mansion, I'm trying to think of a specific scenario, but I'm pretty sure scenarios like this have existed in Zelda games, where you gradually learn the mechanics,
Yes.
and the end boss you got to do them all.
Yes, but with Zelda games, Luigi's Mansion was a great game, phenomenal game. Everyone should play it if you have a Switch. It was one of the best games for Nintendo last year.
I was enjoying it when we were playing it together.
When we were playing it together.
I was seriously. I mean, I want to
Yeah.
stress this as much as I can, and to you, Nick, to our audience out there. I was never a fan of the games. I was never interested in the games. But when we were playing together,
Yeah.
I was having the best time.
Yeah,
I really
it's
was.
a really good game. My only complaint is a small one that I felt like I got through the bosses, no problem, but it was just the ramp up I felt was a little uneven. That's all. That's really all it was just like the level up for that. Not even the last boss, but the pre to last boss. The last boss that leads you into the last boss. You know how they do that in games, like,
Yeah.
oh, this should be the end, and oh wait, no, there's one more.
Yeah, this isn't my final form.
Yeah, pretty much that kind of thing. The last boss was easy. It was just took a little more. It was just you had to show more patience in that one. But the
Just
last,
trying to figure it out, right?
The second to last boss, I guess I'll say, was just a little more. The timing element was a little weird. It was just a little frustrating of a fight.
I know.
Yeah.
That is Mega Man games for me. Trying to figure out not just the bosses themselves, like the robot masters that you have to challenge, but the end boss. Like I'm thinking of not just Wily. I'm specifically thinking of the X series. When you get to Sigma.
Oh, Sigma's
like because you have to learn the pattern, but like learning the pattern while doing it, it's like really, really tough. And then if you don't get far enough and actually get enough practice to learn the pattern, it just becomes more and more frustrating.
And it's not only learning the pattern with Sigma or any end Mega Man boss, it's learning the pattern and learning which of the 8 to 10 weapons you need to use.
Yes, thank you.
And then we'll take Mega Man X, the first one, as an example. If you didn't do everything to get the Hadouken, that fight is like 1,000 times more difficult.
Yeah.
So
That's what's making me think of.
Or is it an X2 that you get the Hadouken?
No, it's an X.
It is an X.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because in X2, I do believe you get the Shoryuken.
Yeah, you get the Shoryuken punch.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I could equate it to.
Yeah, which is it's fine. It's fine. It was just a little jarring, I guess, because it was so unexpected for me at that point, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Then after that, I moved on to Kirby Star Allies.
Great game.
I love Kirby games.
Kirby games are adorable.
This game was grandly easier than any other Kirby game I've ever played, and Kirby games aren't difficult at all.
You have a party of 4.
Yeah, you have a party of 4, and it's but it was a really fun challenge. I really liked the last bosses in that game. The very end of the game got really amazing and really fun, and just all the different mechanics they threw in there. It kind of reminded me of the end of Kirby Planet Robobot, which was the one on the 3DS right before this one, which was just a great game from start to finish. So I finished that. I really enjoyed that. If you like Kirby games, it's a fun Kirby game. It is. It's it's appealing to all ages. I guess that what it is. Little kids could play it, and up to adults. So that was good.
I've never played one.
Oh, they're so. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Kirby ever since the Game Boy one. When I was, I want to say like 8 to 10 years old when that came out. I remember
platformer games.
Yeah, they're platformer games.
Yeah.
I remember going to Toys R Us when that was released and getting a copy of that, looking at the little card, flipping it upside down. I want this game. Taking the piece of paper up to the register, having it printed on the receipt, going over to the cage to have them bring the game.
Yeah.
Take the receipt with the little tags stapled together, and then they brought out the game. But yeah, Kirby I saw on Nintendo Power for the Game Boy, and I wanted that game. And I really enjoy the series. It's one of those series that I forget how much I enjoy until they put out a game. And then after that, I moved on. I moved on, and I was one dungeon away from beating the remake of Link's Awakening when I just stopped everything else.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Yeah, on Hero
That
mode.
latest one, right?
Yeah,
The
Link's Awakening remake on Hero mode. And so I went through and I spent the last hour and a half to finally beat that. And,
I like how you're very nonchalantly saying, "Oh, I was one dungeon away from beating Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening in Heroes mode."
in Heroes mode, because
Heroes
there is a
mode.
difference.
In Heroes mode.
Is that the hardest difficulty?
Well, it gives the game difficulty. The thing about Link's Awakening was it was for the Game Boy. It's a phenomenal game, great story. People always talk about how Majora's Mask is a dark story. This was the first dark story for Zelda.
Okay.
The Zelda series, but it's a relatively easy game. There's not a huge challenge in that game. The dungeons, the puzzles can be a little convoluted at times, but it's not challenging. You never felt in that game on the Game Boy like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this boss, because everything, once you figured it out, and they usually gave you enough hints to figure it out, but just some of the puzzles in the dungeons.
Wouldn't you say that they perhaps intentionally didn't make it difficult because
it's on the Game Boy?
It's a literal love letter to the game.
Yeah, and it's on the Game Boy, and the whole backstory of how the game came to be.
Oh, right, yeah.
Once again,
it was rushed. Yeah.
No, it wasn't rushed at all. It was a side project for people who were trying to, at Nintendo, who off hours were like, "Hey, let's figure out a Game Boy game. Let's make a Zelda game for fun." And then they pitched it, and it turned into a real game. So it was a game that was done, I think, by R&D 2. I want to say. Once again, as I do in almost every time we talk. Norm, the game historian, has a phenomenal video on the history of this, which details it much better than I ever could. So if you want to know that backstory about how the game came to be, that's where you should go. And it's a great story. It's a great game. But Hero Mode gave it a real challenge. There were times where I was like, oh man, I really have to be careful, because the difference in Hero Mode is there are no hearts in the game. The only way to recover hearts is to find a heart piece, like a piece of a heart to increase, or to find fairies. And there's only, I think, like 4 or 5 fairy caves throughout the whole map.
Do they?
Yeah, the
fairies come back?
Yeah, the fairies will come back, and you can catch them in jars, and you have 3 jars. But it's still... Oh, and there's like... there's this medicine you can get to where if you die, if you fall in battle, you get all of your hearts refilled. But you have to go talk to a witch every time this happens. But it's a difficult... It was a more of a challenge in this game, and I enjoyed that, having a challenge in this game.
I just want to say, how dare you? She's a nice lady, and she's very nice to make you potions. So
yes, but she actually, her name, I can't remember her name. It's something witch. I think she's a witch. Is she the witch, or is she someone?
Yeah,
else?
she has.
She's
a
not
name.
she's not the spinning witch, the one who gives you the magic powder. She's a different one. She's like a younger.
Yeah, because not the younger one, because the younger
the younger one gives you the salve.
The salve.
Yeah, it's called it's called Secret Medicine. And it's like a rubbing salve that you put on yourself.
In that game? Because
in Link
Between Worlds,
they
introduced the daughter.
That's a different...
That's different?
That's different.
Oh, okay,
yeah, that's a different lady. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a totally... Because, I mean, okay, the game is 30 years old almost, or it is about 30 years old. Spoiler alert here. If you don't know anything about Link's Awakening, you should fast forward 15 seconds from now. It's a dream. The whole thing's a dream. Your ship in the ocean has crashed, and it's a dream, and you're trying to wake up from this dream. And by waking up from this dream, you destroy everything on the island. So everyone on this island that you've met who was alive is not. They're all a dream being held by these creatures called the Nightmare. So you kill the Nightmare at the end, awaken the Windfish, and everything disappears. So all the interactions you had, all these characters, you were like, oh, these characters are great. They're gone, and you're sitting in the ocean on a little piece of wood. And that's how the game ends. It's insane. It's one of those, like, the first time I remember getting through that, they're talking about, like, oh, wake the Windfish and, all this stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And I just couldn't even comprehend it as a kid, really. But, yeah. So then I've beaten those 3 games, and now I'm going back to Octopath Traveler. I enjoyed Octopath Traveler the first 15, 17 hours I put into it, and then I put it down for other games because... That was at the time when the Switch was pumping out just quality games, and it felt like every 2 weeks there was something that I had to play. But now I'm going back and I'm finishing this up. So I've got 7 games total to beat this year.
Wow.
I think 6 or 7 games that were almost finished, or like Octopath barely started, and now I'm going to go back and finish.
What kind of game is Octopath?
I've never heard of that. Octopath Traveler, it's a Square Enix RPG.
Oh, okay.
It's by the team that made the Bravely Default series. And there's 8 main characters in it that you're living their stories. So every letter, the reason it's called Octopath Traveler is because you're traveling around, and each character's name is one of the letters for the word Octopath.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why it's Octopath. Yeah. That's where that comes from, 8 Octo people in Octopath. So... You're getting all these characters together, and I'm at the point where I have 1 character left to get in my party to have all 8, and then to continue the story. And I believe what happens is you're playing all these storylines that are completely different around this map that all somehow merge together. And I'm really looking forward to that. once you get through everyone's like chapters, their backstories and where they go, they start to interact with the other characters, and then there's probably a common goal in the end, I imagine. So I'm really excited for that.
Nice.
Pretty game, nice music, really fun battle system once you get used to it. It has this weird battle system where like every enemy has a shield, like they'll take damage, but they have a shield and they have weaknesses to different types of attacks with different weapons or different magic. And if you get their shield gauge down, you break them, so then for a turn or two they cannot attack, so you can have free attack on them. And you also have the chance to, every time you attack, you build up a gauge up to I think 3 or 4, and then you could use that gauge to do 1, 2, 3, or 4 times the power of the attack. Or if you're doing like a slash attack and you go up to 3, you can knock down 3 of someone's shield, so you could break faster. It's a really interesting management way. It's kind of like, I was talking to Rick today about this at lunch. The
battle
system
for
for Bravely Default, how you could wait to have your gauge, but this one you don't have to wait. The gauge.
Well, in Bravely Default, you could. It's in the title. It's you either act bravely or default, meaning by defend or wait.
Okay.
So in Bravely Default, there's a system of you can wait and not do anything for a turn, but bank up those turns and up to I think a max of 3. And sequentially do actions, not just attack a couple times, or I'm sorry, not like maximize attack, but you can do an attack 3 times. You can do an attack, use an item, use magic, something like that. So you have 3 different turns to do 3 different things, or you could, I'm sorry. So if you wait, you can actually bank up and do three different things, and then. Either go into like a negative state where you actually use up a whole bunch of turns and you have to then wait until those turns actually pass, or you can make sure that you can do 3 different things so that on your next turn you can actually do something, or you can just actively always actively try to do something. I shouldn't say always, but you can actively try to do something and then wind up exhausting your turns, so that if you actively do, you have a counter, and if your counter's at 0 and it goes down to -3 because you used 3 actions, you have to wait those 3 turns until you can do something.
Okay, but that one is turn-based.
It's turn-based.
Well, this one's
well?
turn-based too.
Okay.
So it's basically a simplified version where they took out the penalty for attacking or the penalty or the bonus for waiting. That's the difference.
Okay.
So that's why that was my biggest problem with Bravely Default when I first played it. When you lent it to me all those years ago, was the battle system, and this one's just a more simplified attack first battle system. And with an RPG, I like an attack first mentality. I guess that's why I enjoy Pokemon games, because who needs Leer? I'm just going to attack.
I don't know. It's Bravely Default. It spoke to me on so many levels. It's one of my favorite titles, and there's only been 2 on the DS, but I played them both, and I've absolutely loved them. I've played those games to 100% completion, and in those games too, you have job titles where you actually can have everybody learn specific skills. Or you can have them do something like me and have them learn everything, even if they're not even going to use them. And I do that because just that battle system and having people learn all those skills and everything, for some reason that really, really speaks to me, and I love games like that. And there's been other Final Fantasy titles that have the same kind of mechanic to them, like that, and I really, really dig it. It's just
because of your love for those games, I really would like you to try out Octopath, the real game, not the demo, because they changed it from the demo, to see if you maybe want to give it a second chance. When I'm done with it, I'm going to lend it to you.
Yes, we have spoken about this. I've tried the demo. I don't know. It didn't do it for me. Yeah. I didn't enjoy it, but as you keep recommending, and actually it is, as you're saying, it is different from the demo. I would like to try it.
Because I wasn't totally sold on the demo either. Mm-hmm. This was a game that was given to me by a friend, and it was one of those like, oh, you really have to play this. A friend bought it, and then got hold of the collector's edition because loved the game so much, went out and bought the collector's edition and had the game, and so gave me the game. I was like,
nice.
Try it. So, and then so I tried. I was like, okay, I'll try it. I ranted and raved at what a great game it was, and then I went into it, and because I remember the demo, I was like, I didn't really enjoy that demo too much. I don't know if I want to do this, and I started playing it, and I was like, wow, this feels so much different than what I remember. So, so that's what I've been playing, and then next time I'll talk about what I've moved on to next if I finish this game.
You got 7 titles to complete in this
It's actually, it was 7 at the beginning of the year, so it's 4 now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cut its way down quick, because a lot of them were so close. Actually, some of the other titles, too, are also really close to being finished.
Oh, man, that's nice. At least you got like a backlog.
Yeah.
I feel like the games I'm playing, they're just endless no matter what I No matter what I do, like if I go back and play Call of Duty, it's just online shooter, you know. But this Frostpunk has an endless mode. I can just keep playing.
Yeah, that's interesting with those types of games because like I remember like StarCraft, the campaign, but like you'd always do like the online. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you just play it until you get burnt out, I guess.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
My kind of games, I guess.
Yeah.
I do want to move the conversation on to a little bit of video game news because since this has been announced, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. I would love to hear your opinion on this, Eddie, and yours too, Rick. Xbox Series X is coming out this Christmas.
This Christmas, right? Okay.
Yes. And they said for the first year, there will be no exclusive games for this, meaning that every game that comes out on this system will either have come out on another system, the PS5, the Switch, or if it's a Microsoft title, it will also be available on the Xbox One.
Okay.
So, like, say they put out a new Halo for the Series X. All it's going to be is an up-graphic version of Halo that they're also going to put out for the One, because they're trying to tell the consumers, we're not abandoning the One, but we're bringing this new console for the hardcore fans, I guess, of the system, or hardcore fans of graphics. How is an Xbox aficionado, we'll use the word, do you feel about something like that?
Very neutral. I think it's a good idea, I guess. They are going into this series mode for a reason, right? I think it is to be able to... I think that is the main concept, the main idea behind turning it into a series where they can just keep making games also for the people who are not upgrading to the latest series.
Or for PC also,
Exactly.
or their Game Pass on
I think,
PC.
And I think it just all has to do with like the Game Pass, you know, how it's available on console, how it's available on PC, and I'm actually
and mobile,
excited.
right? Or it's coming to mobile.
That's what I'm excited for. I'm waiting for them to release their streaming service, which then I would be able to play these games on my mobile phone, right? I'm guessing that's the idea. So
like the Stadia?
kind of like Stadia, yeah. They have their own. I think they're working on their own version of
They're
that.
working on their own version of Stadia, and it was funny because Stadia was like, "Hey, we're here, guys," and then like a day before Stadia was coming out, Microsoft was like, "We're doing it better," and it was like, "Okay." And I'm not a Microsoft fan by any means, but I will say, as someone who's a Nintendo fan and just I've never really been that much into Xbox, I do understand the direction they're going in, especially considering the problems they had with this last generation of console. Because like the Xbox One did not sell near the levels that the PS4 did.
Yeah,
and now the Switch is creeping up on it already, or bypassed it already in sales, and it's been out for a lot less time. So I do get their idea on trying to sell more systems and make it more accessible for everyone, and not force people into like, hey, you have to buy our system or else, because that's not working for them right now.
Yeah, so I'm keeping an open mind on this direction that they're going with.
Were you aware of this, Rick?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was not aware of this at all, and I didn't
Initial
even know
reaction?
what it meant.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of understand what's happening, what that means, but it doesn't affect me, so I don't care.
I was gonna say just as an industry level thing, like just the fact that
it kind of makes sense.
They're deciding like, hey, for the first year we're gonna cannibalize our own market to a degree by letting you buy these games on the last console, on the last version of it.
I mean, unless they were promising, I don't know. It sounds to me like if there's no reason that this new console does something that the other ones cannot do for a title, there's no reason to pretty much abandon this previous console, unless they're doing it doesn't sound like they're making any kind of game that requires this much more processing power or this type of video card.
It'll just look nicer. The graphics will be cleaner. Maybe the load times will be faster.
So
Little things like that.
It's a PS4 Pro, right?
Well, that was a slight up-res, though. I think this will be a different.
This is a huge leap.
This is a huge leap. I don't want to get into teraflops because I'm not good with teraflops, but the teraflop number for this Series X versus what the Xbox One is, tenfold or some nonsense like that. It's a lot more horsepower under the engine, we'll say, in this new console.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the numbers.
And it looks like
20
an
times
obelisk.
better
It's
than
weird.
the Xbox One X.
20 times? Okay,
I think.
20. Yeah.
I heard something like that. Maybe.
So the game will look even nicer. The graphics will look even cleaner. The draw distance will be further. The load times will probably be faster. Just draw distance and rendering space, so like seamless worlds can be bigger without having to like, oh, we have to transition for a load now because we can only load X amount of depth in our X, Y, and Z axis.
And they are promising to keep up with the backwards compatibility. So
that's
I
nice.
think I am able to bring my entire library. That what's available on the Xbox.
It has a little
One
slot
X.
on the front for discs, so that's nice. Got a little disc slot on the front.
I hear the same thing for the PS5, that there's full backwards compatibility.
What does that mean for them, though? That's my question for that is, because I'm not fully sure on that. They say full backwards compatibility. Do they mean full backwards compatibility to PS1?
Yeah, that's
That
what
would
I
be
would
cool.
imagine what it means. Yeah.
Or do they mean full backwards compatibility is every title from PS4 will now work on this? Because that could mean two things.
Yeah.
Full backwards compatibility means it could be fully for one generation.
I
That's
think
really my question.
I think in this day and age, it'd be ridiculous for them not to acknowledge the fact that
People
there's still an
want it?
interest in older titles.
Well, yeah, we know people want this because with the PS3, this happened where they put in the PS2
Yeah.
and then they took it out because it cost too much.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We found that the PS2 versus the PS3, 1, 3, and 4, it seems like can all play the same style of discs. The 2 is the outlier here. 2 has to have a different type of lens to play the disc or something. Because pretty much what the PS3 with the PS2 was, it was a PS3 with a PS2 built inside of it. It wasn't software, it was hardware that played your PS2 games for those.
Yeah.
So they removed that hardware because it wasn't cost effective. And I'm just wondering, like, are they going to do that again, or have they found a way to emulate it with software? Like, it's going to be interesting. That one will be
It
interesting.
sounds to me like that exactly, because it's foolish. I would think it's foolish not to acknowledge the fact that what everybody has been doing with these mini consoles is opening up its library to everything. Emulation is here. I mean, sure, it's a form of piracy.
Yeah.
But if it can become a company supported format of it, then why not? I would 100% support it.
You hear that, Nintendo? I want a Switch Pro that I can put my NES and Game Boy cartridges into. And Super Nintendo.
I actually forgot about discs and physical copies of video games. I actually buy most of my stuff digital.
Oh, I'm completely the opposite. I only buy digital when I have to. If it's a game I really want to play that's digital only, but if there's physical media for it, I want that for the future.
That's interesting.
Because I have the collector in me. I collect for the NES and just old video game stuff in general. I collect stuff and I like it. I like having it. It's something that it's kind of like in my mind a slight archive of history, as weird as that sounds. I like to maintain it. Like when I'll do this for people, if they have old video games that have been sitting around for a while, I'll say, hey, can you bring them in so I can clean them and try to like restore them and make them proceed so they play again? Because to me, preserving that type of history is fun. I enjoy that, like, hey, I couldn't get this video game to play or work, like an old cartridge, and then I can work on it and say, oh yeah, I got it, or my console doesn't work anymore. Well, bring it into me. Let me see what I can do. I like doing that. That's really fun.
Yeah, and I think that's
That's cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's why I guess I'm into the idea of physical media, because it will be here. Long after the servers shut down for all of these old games, like the Wii was a perfect example. The Wii store shut down, and there's games that are lost. The Castlevania Adventures remake for the Wii, which was the Game Boy game remade and added to, unless you have a Wii that's downloaded on, there's no other way to get that game, and the servers are done, so you can't go buy it. You have to know someone who has a Wii or have a Wii yourself that has this game pre-installed and hope that Wii never breaks. So there's things that get lost like that to history, which is sad when, so that's why I'm big onto physical. And the less people that buy physical, the less demand there is for it, the less companies will do it, and then we'll move to all digital and we'll lose
will be
things.
sad.
Yeah. Losing. They'll be like old films, because they weren't preserved correctly, and now there was years and years and years of films, hundreds and thousands of movies that have been lost, and television shows because they didn't know how to preserve the quality of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
Wow, awesome.
I know it's a weird topic to get on. Sorry, but I buy digital games. Well, I'm going to sit here and complain about.
No. Video game news is always great. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. I think we want to talk about some movies,
Yeah.
and possibly explain what happened to a middle podcast that was recorded, and now, just as you mentioned, it is lost forever in history.
Yeah.
So for our audiences out there, Nick and Eddie and myself, we joined together and we tried to create a podcast podcast based upon Jokers through the ages. It was cinematic Jokers through the ages, where we gathered together and we discussed, all of us having seen the recent Joker movie, we discussed the actors' portrayals of representing this iconic Batman villain. And we've discussed them to a great length, and we ranked them all, and we discovered some things about ourselves, me mainly. And unfortunately, as much as I tried to preserve that, recover the audio.
I even tried to, after you had recovered it, I tried even more to see if we could get it to a state where you could actually listen to it.
Due to technical difficulties, it's not good, and the struggle is real. It's just performing a podcast is difficult, and sometimes the equipment just doesn't hold up. So we're trying our best, and thank you for everybody for dealing with our audio qualities. I'm learning every time I do this. I'm learning. So unfortunately, that podcast is gone. But we do want to talk about movies and briefly talk about perhaps the Joker.
We should talk about the Joker movie, because the last podcast that people had, we talked about. I hadn't seen it yet, and you hadn't seen it yet.
I was. It was recommended to me not to see it.
And Eddie had seen it. And Eddie saw it in theaters. In theaters, which was, I guess, a different experience, as you explained in the podcast. We won't go too detailed.
I think so. I mean, I haven't seen it on television, but I like to think it's different.
Just a quick thing here. I thought it was a great movie. I enjoyed it. I think Joaquin Phoenix deserves the Academy Award for his portrayal. And just, it was so good. He did... I don't know. There was just something about that movie where it was just so well done. I think his acting really boosted that movie a lot. And just watching him lose his mind, it was just so well done. Like I've never felt more emotion for the Joker as a character, because usually the Joker, he's like, oh, he's cool, he's crazy, whatever. I've never felt like that connection. Like, oh my God. Really? No, not this. Why is this happening to you? No, you could stop this. Like, you never, that connection with him, he brought that to that character.
I have to say, adding on to what you're saying, Nick, it's we're seeing a different trend now where we're giving, not as we say, as I'm saying, it's more of a Hollywood. We're giving villains a chance to tell their story, and in this instance, we see Arthur Fleck's drop into insanity and embracing it. And becoming something, an almost stable version of himself, and realizing that his life is a comedy and it's not a tragedy. This movie was recommended me not to watch due to its violence. I came across it and I saw the intro and I saw how Joaquin Phoenix was laughing, and I was my curiosity knows no bounds. I saw him laughing and I asked myself, what is he laughing at? And I had to know. And so I started to watch it, and I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the movie. The more, I will say this really quickly, that the more I thought that the movie wasn't based in its comic book roots, and I thought it was more of a realistic story, the more I enjoyed it. But as the more of the comic book roots did show themselves, with mention of Bruce Wayne, Thomas Wayne, and Gotham itself, I felt it took away. Nevertheless, I thought it was a great movie. Joaquin Phoenix did a fantastic job. Joaquin Phoenix, please come on the show. Please come on the show and talk with us about this movie or anything you want to talk about.
The Matrix.
I wanted The Matrix, yeah. So I want to say that just to point out that Joaquin Phoenix did have a bit of a handicap. I want to say is because he had the ability to, he had so many actors before him.
Well, that wouldn't be a handicap. It would
Not
be
a handicap.
advantage.
It's an advantage. Thank you. An advantage. An advantage because he had so many performers before him portray this iconic character. And I imagine he probably, was able to build off of that and create something even more. But even then, now he was in this movie. He's more Arthur Fleck than he is the Joker.
He's not the Joker in this movie. That's the
the
beauty of it. At the
this.
end of it is the fact that he plays the Joker for maybe 2 minutes in that whole movie.
And he does a fantastic job. Joaquin Phoenix, you really, really do.
Yes, and you could. It's funny because if you go back and watch it again, you could see that the point. It's not when he comes on stage and paints his face does he become the Joker.
No.
It's about halfway through that conversation, and not even halfway. Right before the end of that conversation, when it finally clicks with him and he becomes the Joker and he's on that show. And that's when everything else happens. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil it. And from that point on, he's the Joker, and he probably has less than 30 speaking lines as the Joker in that, because everything else is as Arthur. And I love that, and I know I want a sequel now. Like, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I need a sequel, but then the more I thought about it, I need a sequel to see him play the Joker.
No. See, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I don't think there should be a sequel, because if there was to be a sequel, it'd just be the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton.
Wouldn't,
the
because
1980?
89.
89?
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be.
Yes, it would be.
It was,
No, because first of all, that's a different villain that becomes the Joker. That's a hitman who goes and actually shoots Thomas Wayne, not his indirect actions.
Yeah.
2, I want to see him as the Joker right after this happens. Bruce Wayne is still a child. Bruce Wayne hasn't even fully become Batman yet. I want to see his rise to power as the Joker. What made him this crime boss and just the worst thing to happen to Gotham? I want to see what events he does that forces Bruce Wayne to become Batman.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So not really kind of like the other movies where there's a Batman
No.
and then the Joker shows up.
Yeah.
You want to see the other
Yes,
side
I
of
want to see
things
the
where
other
we're
side of it.
following the Joker
Yes.
and then seeing Batman appear at some point.
Yeah, maybe at the very end is when he decides, like, I now need to become Batman. I'm fine with that. Just step in, or they allude to that. They don't even have to have him there. They just have to have some kind of, like, cue at the end, like, oh, look, a bat flies through the screen or something like that. I don't care how it happens, but I really want to see what he can do as the Joker, because he hasn't been able to be the Joker yet. That's really what
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. That's what
See,
I'm
but
really
that's the thing, though. Is it, if that was the movie, is that really, the Joker? Because the way that I always seen it is, I need Batman to be there to see how the Joker interacts with the Batman, because it's always been that relationship,
Yeah,
right? So if we're just watching the Joker again without the Batman, and then at the end of the movie he just kind of like a subtle hint that he's coming, did we really
I did
have that same experience of watching a Batman and Joker relationship?
Well, I don't think this should be technically a Batman and Joker thing. I mean, this is
maybe
more,
that's the
this is
third
more,
movie.
yeah, maybe the trilogy. I just think this is more of finally the story of the Joker without having to rely on the Bat being there.
But this is where I find it difficult to, and this is why I kind of told you guys, my rating of the Jokers.
Yeah.
Right? Because now I haven't seen none of the other Jokers being portrayed when they were just rising to this
That's not
Joker level.
Well, not necessarily, but
Right?
Jack Nicholson's Joker, he does start off as
the mob guy.
yeah, he does start off as just a guy and then turns into the Joker. It's a real
Does
quick.
that happen kind of quickly though?
Extremely
right?
quick. It's like
Yeah.
it's within the first half of the first act of the movie. But you get to see that as where the the Heath Ledger one. We talked about this in depth on the podcast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one will hear this. The Heath Ledger one was the whole mystery of who is the Joker. He'll never tell you. You'll never know what the real story is, how he became. And I think that was on purpose. That was done on purpose for that series, because that's a much more dark, Shroud series in general. The Christopher Nolan trilogy was. So yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there was the Jared Leto Joker.
Oh wow!
which-
I keep forgetting about that one.
Why do you have to keep bringing this up?
Jared
Why do we have to
Leto.
talk about this?
So Jared Leto was in the Suicide Squad movies,
he wasn't a
and
Joker.
there was little to no amount of really like
Effort.
No, a screen time for him. He was like very briefly in the movie.
Because it wasn't a Joker movie, right? It wasn't like
No, it wasn't, yeah.
it wasn't a
Yeah.
Batman with Joker movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It's a. Let's. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah. So
Cool. That's awesome.
So yeah, so we went into depth about all these in
Yeah.
that podcast, and we won't do them again now.
Yeah.
But really, not to exclude you from the conversation, Eddie. Please give us your impression of Joker.
I enjoyed it. Just pretty much the same feedback as you guys. Well, not like Rick's over here,
Yeah.
where he didn't like the Bruce
the
Wayne,
Thomas,
yeah,
the Bruce and Thomas Wayne thing.
I enjoyed
Yeah,
all that stuff.
thought
I
it
love
was
that
needed.
was there. Yeah.
It was needed to drive the story to a
But
conclusion.
I don't think we said this, but the interesting fact about the whole movie as well, from what I understood, was that it's also kind of hard to know what actually parts were real and which ones were kind of part of his imagination, because I think the
Yeah.
movie kind of reveals at
Parts,
some point that
yeah.
there was some parts where he was actually making them up in his mind.
Yeah.
And some parts, I guess could have been real, or maybe the whole thing wasn't real. I kind of like
No.
that because they were saying at the end he's just in the, like he
Arkham
could have just been
Asylum.
in the asylum the whole time.
Yeah.
You
But
know, but I kind of like
but-
that. I kind of like that.
yeah.
That's a possibility, but I think it's
I don't
tough
think
to-
that's a possibility, but I do like the fact that when they did the reveal of his girlfriend. Who,
Yeah. I thought
that
was
whole
pretty
thing
cool.
was really cool because that makes you question some other scenes. Like, did this really happen? But there's things I think had to have happened for him to be where he is.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the violence in the movie. There was some violence that was actually kind of funny.
I-
Made me
I
laugh.
just-
I
just-
chuckled and
I
giggled
just-
in the theater.
It was shocking, but in a good way. The Johnny Carson, because that's what that show basically is, the Johnny Carson show scene. How that ends, not the speech, but just the violence in that. How that scene ends was just, you knew something was coming, but I didn't know it was going to be that blunt and just glorious in its own sense for the word of violence. Like the way they portrayed it was just like, wow. Oh, it was just like, it was breathtaking, but like not in like a gasping, like, oh, it's beautiful, like breathtaking, like I don't know how to react to that kind of way.
Yeah, I do enjoy the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness in that
Yeah,
scene.
yeah.
With that lady that was on there with him, and I think in the whole movie there's like only 3 scenes where you actually see him open up his notebook, and if you can look, there's something pornographic that he had
Yes.
like written down and put in there
Yes.
too, where it's like
he cut out pictures of porn magazines in there. Yeah,
and he had that in there, and like
Yeah.
every time he opened up the notebook,
it was always on one of the pages.
The frame, the way they shoot that, I always like that. It was always like really interesting because like you almost want to be like, I want to see what's in there.
Yeah.
What the things he wrote. It's just the
I
insanity.
also like that because it just showed his madness too. Because I'm even wondering when he's opening it and looking at that, is actually the joke he says even written there, or is it what he interprets his scribbles on the page to actually be? And there's just things like that.
And
yeah.
that and I love the whole dancing bit that he
Oh,
does
yeah.
too. I like to think that The Notebook. I could be 100%
Is your favorite
incorrect.
movie ever? The Notebook is your favorite movie.
Oh, The
ever.
Notebook is a great movie.
Going on to the.
I like to think. As I said, as I want to be clear, I could be 100% wrong on this, but I like to think that The Notebook and the dancing was all done by Joaquin Phoenix, by his inspiration of the character that he was portraying.
I think the dancing.
that
I don't
he
know
did
about the
that.
Notebook. That looks like a prop team did that based
Really?
on direction. Personally, I could be wrong. If you'd come on the show, we could find out.
Yeah.
But the dancing, I think, was kind of like, hey, we need you to dance down these stairs, and that's how he felt as the character.
I think the end part when he's in Arkham and you see him dancing down the hall and you see the red footprints when he leaves behind.
Yeah.
That I think that's like I think the best form of his dancing. I think it's just I think what really does it is it's slow mo.
Yeah.
I think it's just it's a really interesting shot and scene,
is.
and just Joaquin Phoenix. He just does
It
a
was
great job.
It's such a good movie. I
Yeah.
would just like to say that I love the fact that we've gotten to a point where comic book character movies can now be considered art. It's not just for entertainment anymore. The Joker shows, because he's been nominated, the movie's been nominated for an Academy Award. Like, that's a huge step for this genre of movies that has always been looked upon much how science fiction movies are looked upon, you know? Like, they're not always taken serious. So that's kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last thoughts about Joker?
No,
I think that's it.
I
Okay.
think
Any
that's
other
it, yeah.
movies that we've seen?
You see anything else? Eddie?
I saw something on Netflix with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson.
Oh,
Something about marriage.
The marriage.
Oh, what's it
Marriage
called?
movie?
I've seen the
I
commercial
forgot
for
the
that.
title of that.
Yeah, it's also nominated. I want to see it.
Yeah?
I want to see it. It looks good. I hear Adam Driver's amazing in it.
Yeah,
he's a
he's
really good
really
actor.
good,
He's
yeah.
a really good
Yeah,
actor.
he's really good.
Yeah,
At it,
yeah, I really enjoyed. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that his acting on that one. It was okay. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just a couple of things that I guess I might have to rewatch it to try to understand really what's going on. But it's a good story.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets real pretty quick.
Uh,
It's kind of funny because I don't know how much I can, I don't know if
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what?
why- please don't spoil it because I will.
Okay.
That is a movie
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will
it's
see.
probably best
Yeah.
not to
Oh,
say
okay. I was
much,
gonna
yeah.
say I don't mind, but
Yeah,
for
I mind,
for Nick's
I
unfortunately.
just
sake
call it
and
a
audience
marriage
sake.
story. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, Marriage Story. That's what
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
called.
so, yeah.
I just remembered you saw Parasite.
Yeah, I
Nick.
saw
Would
Parasite
you mind talking about
yesterday.
that? Oh, would you
Oh,
like to
nice,
talk about
okay.
that? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to talk about Parasite. What a great movie that
Okay.
was.
Just for clarification, Eddie, Eddie, have you seen it?
I have
No,
not
Eddie and I
seen it, and
have-
I haven't heard of it.
Okay,
seen it.
so Parasite's a foreign film. It's a Korean film. It's done by the director who did The Host and Okja, And I don't know if you've seen either of those movies. The Host is kind of a monster movie comedy that's from, I want to say, 10, 15 years ago. And Okja came out 2 years ago on Netflix. And it's a movie more so about the modern meat industry and how society perceives the killing of animals for food. And it's a really good movie. It's on Netflix. If you get a chance, it's a really heartwarming story. And it takes just the slaughterhouses and changes them into like, well, what about this lab created creature who has to go through this? But it's a really good job. And this little girl and her connection to one of these hippo-like creatures that she calls Okja. That's the name of the creature.
Oh, okay.
So he directed this movie. And at first I was like, okay, I heard about it because people who have seen it talk about what a good movie it is. And then it's nominated for Best Picture of the Year. Probably won't win because foreign films tend not to win. But if it won, I wouldn't be surprised because it is really good. And so I was like, oh, let me see the trailer. And you start the trailer, and I was like, oh, well, let's see if I enjoy this. And the trailer really sells you on the movie. The idea of the movie, it's about a Korean family who's trying to fit into, who's poor, who's trying to fit into upper class Korean society. But about halfway through the movie changes into something different.
Yeah.
It changes from one movie to another movie.
Okay.
For the better. And you're just like, what's going on? And it's weird because I do like foreign films. I try to watch as many as I can, especially the really good ones. Very few times in foreign films have I come out of a foreign film like, man, the acting in that was good because of the language barrier. This one, the acting was so good, even though I'm just reading dialogue, and it was a well-written movie, clever. It's just a really cool story, and it's not. When I started, it's not where I expected I would end with that movie, and I just liked it.
Is this the one where this family works for like a
rich family?
white
Yes.
family? Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Well, they're not a white family; they're another Korean
just another
family.
Korean?
Yes,
Okay.
a rich Korean family.
So I think I have heard about this.
Just a
Actually,
brief
somebody told me
overview. It
about
starts
yeah.
off with the son getting a job as the English tutor for the daughter.
Okay.
And then everything else that goes along with it is just
Gets better and
It gets
better.
better and better, and just by the end of the movie, you're just like, wow. Like I just remember ending that movie and just being like, wow, I really enjoyed that. It was so yeah.
You said is this one available on Netflix now?
No,
or
this
you
is
saw this
on demand.
On demand, okay.
Yeah, so this is on demand right now. If you get a chance to watch it, it is a really good movie. It's not what you expect it's going to be. I think I actually like it better than the Joker, and I was big on the Joker winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. But I like this movie a lot, even though I know it has no chance. Yeah. Have you seen any movies, Rick?
I was just thinking right now, funny enough, I've seen it 1,000 times, and it's one of my favorites. But recently, my wife watched it for the first time. Was Die Hard with a Vengeance, and so I was enjoying watching that with her. She'd never seen it before, and it's I like that movie a lot. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I've seen anything recent. I think maybe the most recent movie I've seen was Joker.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Which was
Well, at least you've seen one of the
When did
movies that's it came out
When
late
did that come out?
late
Yeah.
December
Late
on
December.
digital.
Which
On
one?
on digital
Joker?
on VOD. You were able to watch it.
It came out in October for
In the-
in the theater.
Yeah, I didn't-
Yeah.
I believe it was like October 11th.
Okay. So going from
To be
October,
exact.
that is the most recent movie I've seen. Is a
Well, at
movie
least
from
you've seen
October.
one of the movies that's nominated for this year's Academy Awards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen all of them. I'm missing 3, I believe. A Marriage Story, I haven't seen. 1917, I haven't seen. And Jojo Rabbit, I haven't seen. I want to see Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit.
It's another one with Scarlett Johansson. It's a movie that takes place during World War II.
Yeah.
And it's about a little boy in Nazi Germany who's part of the Hitler Youth movement who has an imaginary friend who is actually Hitler, and it's a comedy. And I know the premise of the movie is he's raised in this way thinking that Jewish people are evil, and he meets a Jewish girl around his age, and they
changes his world,
it changes his world. It kind of blows his mind, like, wait, you're supposed to be evil, and that's where the movie goes. And I don't know much more about it beside that. Yeah,
okay.
but it's supposed to be hilarious and funny. It's a really good satire movie about the whole Nazi movement. So so that's one of those ones I want to see, and I do want to see A Marriage Story, another Scarlett Johansson film. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything. You know what did come out recently? I wouldn't mind watching. I know you recommended, and I know you love is Addams Family.
Oh, the Addams Family. Yeah, I like that movie. Oh,
I
that's
haven't
so
seen
fun.
it. I know it's available on demand now
Yeah.
or digital.
I'm a big Addams Family fan, so I just really enjoyed the movie. I like what they did with the characters. I like the story. Let me just put it this way. Over the weekend, I watched Addams Family, and in October, I watched Addams Family Values and Addams Family multiple times. The original Raul Julia, Jessica Lange,
Christopher
Chris-
Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd, movies, Christina Ricci. Sorry, Pugsley, can't remember your name. Or Lurch.
Joan
Cusack's in the second one.
Yeah.
I watched those, and it was just funny because this Addams Family came out, and it was refreshing because this is not a story about Fester Addams. Because both Addams Family movies are stories about Fester Addams, which is fine. Okay. I like him. The one he comes back, can't remember, he's the brother. The other one, he finds the Black Widow wife, and it's all surrounded around Fester and his poor mistakes.
It's so odd because even the old Nintendo game was surrounded around Fester.
Fester, all the games, well, except for Pugsley, but that was off of the cartoon. There's a Pugsley game on the Super Nintendo, but that's based off of the cartoon, the Addams Family cartoon from the 90s. But this one was good because it was a story I wanted to see about the Addams Family being accepted into society, into a world. So it was about the family and how people thought they were different and weird. That was kind of always the subtext in all of the other two Addams Family movies it was about Fester's adventures really, and people didn't like them. But this one focused on that, so that's why I like this one. And it was just a good story.
I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yeah.
You gotta step up your game, man.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, if I can ever find the time.
Watch it with the kids. It's a family friendly movie.
Okay, yeah.
It is. It definitely is. There's nothing in there that's like, oh man.
I don't think they've ever seen or shown them. We haven't watched the movies, and I forgot about the old cartoon. I used to watch the old cartoon all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think they've ever seen any kind of mention of it. And the old show, I used to watch the old show.
I love the old show.
I used to watch the old show. When I was younger,
it's one of those things where it took me a long time to realize I like Addams Family more than I ever liked the Munsters, and I love the Munsters, but I like Addams Family more. Yeah.
One episode always sticks out in my mind from the old show was when Cousin It, they put marbles in Cousin It's mouth, and he was able to talk.
Oh, normal, yeah.
Yeah, talk normal, yeah. And I always thought that was so weird that they put marbles in
that'll. One thing I will say, the only weird thing about the Addams Family movie, now that you bring up Cousin It is voiced by Snoop Dogg.
Oh.
And it's
wow, cool.
It's strange because it's exactly how you think it's going to go, but until it happens, you're like, I wonder how they're going to do this. Yeah, and then they do it, and you're like, that's exactly how I imagine this happening.
Wow. How do you think that? How did that happen? Do you think Snoop Dogg approached them, or do you think they approached Snoop Dogg?
They had to approach Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg goes to no one. Snoop Dogg's his own man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Any other movies? No. Any other topics?
No, I can't think of anything else that.
No.
No, just all that recent stuff was the games and these movies.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was pretty good then. Yeah. All right. Thank you everybody for enjoying this latest episode of Retro Lunch Break, the podcast. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. And in case if you ever want us to talk about something, please comment, and we'll see if we can work it in there.
Oh yeah, if there's something out there that you want to hear us talk about or want us to bring up to hear our opinions on, we would love that kind of input.
Nick is a big fan of Nintendo.
Yes.
Eddie is a big fan of Microsoft. I myself am a big fan of RPGs. We can work off of that.
I love movies.
You love movies.
Long walks on the beach. And The Matrix.
Oh, nice. Awesome. All right. So thank you very much for joining us. And for Retro Lunch Break, I'm Rick.
I'm Nick.
I'm Eddie.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Retro Lunch Break.